Greetings, magical souls. I've come on today to share possibly my most magical and wildest session yet. That doesn't take away from all the other sessions, but I think as I start sharing more of these going forward, some of the nuances and differences in the sessions will start becoming more apparent. But this one was mind-blowing because I've never really been corrected by an animal before, nor have I actually been given something where I wasn't quite sure exactly what it was, and I had to go and Google it afterwards. So anyway, I had this session with this cat, and he initially, when I was tuning into him, I was getting that he was quite wise, old soul. And then I was kind of like, yeah, you've got this regal energy, like royalty, and like you feel very discerning and very not really wanting just anybody around. Like he's very, very selective about who he shares his energy with. And it was almost like he had high expectations, but I just kept getting this. I kept saying, wow, like regal, like royalty. Anyway, and so the other thing that I have here, and I'm just checking my notes, is that he felt like he had had a couple of lifetimes in Egypt, and not that he was used to being worshipped, but it just, this cat knows who he is. He's very comfortable with who he is. Doesn't need to prove anything. Like really, really, really powerful energy that was coming through. And you know, I always start these sessions like feeling into their sort of personality and their energy, and I get it coming through in sort of energy. And so it was really fascinating to me, and kind of by the end of all this, I really felt like I was quite honored that he was even talking to me. So he just had this very regal energy, and it's not the first time I've had this. So it comes through as regal, and then I kind of got to explain to the person that that's like kind of like royalty type thing. And it's happened on a few occasions. But anyway, so this unfolded. So when I was done with it, I then said to him, you know, is there anything else that you'd like to share with me? Just to begin the session, the floor is yours. You know, whatever it is, you bring it. And he started with correcting me and saying that his energy is not royal. It's more like a count. He's like a count. And I'm going, really? Okay. Well, I had to ask him. It was like, because he's telling me this for a very specific reason. You know, they don't share these things. So my next question to him was, okay, so tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what's different between sort of the regal royal and you've now said that you're more like a count. So tell me more about that. And this was his response. He said, the count is almost a position that commands respect. Whereas for him, royalty and the sense that of how we know it is like royalty rule over spaces or places or over kingdoms. And so his is not one of necessarily ruling over. It's more like a status and a position, but without it being egotistical. And then he said there's like a nobility to it, but also humility. So there's nobility in the way that he's kind of one with all. And that's why he doesn't like this royal thing, because he feels like that kind of holds dominion over others, whereas he is an equal. This humility and this nobleness is more about that he's here to fulfill a mission and do what he needs and do what needs to be done, no matter how it's perceived by others. And so I was like, wow, this is really interesting. So after the session, I had to go onto Google and go like, what really is a count? I mean, I've heard of a count, but for me, I'm thinking of Count Dracula. Because there's not really any, I know we have counts and countesses, but it was like, he's telling me that there's a very big difference between the two. So I had to go and Google it. Like, what's the difference between royalty and a count, or what, da, da, da. And I mean, I obviously know royalty you're normally born into, but that was kind of the extent of it. And it was like, okay, wow, this is really interesting. So what I found on the web is that the count or countess is a noble title. It's not royal. And it actually comes from the Latin word meaning companion. And it was originally a companion of the emperor. But over time, it became a rank of nobility, someone who governed land on behalf of a higher ruler. So the councilman used to maybe work with royalty or on behalf of royalty. But it was so really, really, really interesting, because that word was companion, and he was showing me that he's working with, he's not above. So anyway, so a count is not royal. Royalty is born or married into a ruling bloodline, but a count is more like this. It comes from this word companion. That was the initial word, what it meant. I didn't know any of this. So he is noble, but part of the aristocracy. And counts may be wealthy, powerful, and influential, but they are not royalty. So for me, in my language, a count was starting to feel a bit more like a guardian of a specific frequency or territory, someone entrusted with this sort of portion of the whole. Whereas royalty, almost they kind of almost, I get the sense that they feel like everything revolves around them. So there's quite different. And so what I found very strange was that how he'd corrected me was actually very historically accurate, but more than that, was energetically refined. For him, this was like he had to make his identity more known to me. This is not semantics. This is important to him. That's why he said, I'm not regal. I am more like a count. All of that kind of clicked, and my brain went, oh, like royalty. And he was like, no, not that kind of power. No, not like that at all. So it was really interesting, because when he said he was working with and doing here what he was here to do, the count almost represents stewardship as opposed to domination, mutual relationship with things, not hierarchy, authority through presence, not position, and that he chooses who enters his space, but he doesn't rule over them. So he was essentially saying, I don't sit on the throne above you, but I don't allow just anybody into my world either. So he's got like these very strict boundaries. And the humility piece struck me. And so I took this count and royal stuff, and I took it into AI, and I said, what's the difference here, And the AI drilled it down a bit more, and it said, royal energy often carries visibility, centrality, and being seen, but count energy carries quiet authority, grounded presence, and there isn't this need to be acknowledged as anything superior. So when he said to me, I have this humility, and I'm quite humble, it was kind of like, I know who I am. You don't need to elevate me. I don't need these royal titles and things like that. The thing that was so interesting about this cat, never mind the fact that he had to correct me, and that was the first thing that he had to do before he even got anywhere near the conversation. He wasn't, no animal connects for vanity ever, because they don't have an ego. But this was really important to him to correct me, because it was alignment, and it was very important. It was almost like count was the closest word that he could find to help me. And it's interesting, because it wasn't a word that I know of the word, I know the word, but I wasn't actually, until I went down this Google rabbit hole, I didn't even realize where this actually came from. What I love about this is, and I'd like to share it, is when you're working telepathically with animals, my teacher used to call them shortcuts. And what will happen is if they're trying to show you something, they will show me something in my sort of library, if you will, of symbols and words and things like that, that relays that message to me in the quickest way possible without them trying to explain it. So it was almost like he dived in and went, okay, I'm going to use the word count. He probably knew I was going to have to look it up afterwards. But that was the closest thing. But he felt the need to correct me. So the other thing that I wanted to share, because this is the second very magical part of this session, is that when I don't actually need the animal's photo to connect with them. I have connected with animals before where people haven't got a photo. The reason why I ask for pictures is because I have this weird thing that goes on with me. So as I'm looking at the animal's photograph to try and get a sense of their energy and their personality, is the photograph morphs, and it's almost like it becomes fluid and I can see other things in the picture. And then if I close my eyes and open them again, the picture's back to normal. Now, what I found with this cat is that as I was looking at him, his features were morphing, and I started seeing him as like an elemental, in a fae, as in a fae elemental. And his ears became quite long and pointed. I mean, I know cats have pointed ears, but this is different. The entire face morphed. And it was like, wow, he's fairy, like he's got fae energy. So this was the other thing that I mentioned in the beginning. And it was like, wow, at the end of the count sort of thing, before I asked him, okay, tell me, is there anything you want to share? I also got that he had this fae energy. I was just wanting to explain what I was seeing, how this cat was almost morphing into where he looked more fairy than cat. And so I mentioned this. It was like, wow, I feel like this cat is carrying fae energy, and this is a first. So after this whole correction and whatever, I said to him, okay, wow, I've got that, etc., etc. Is there anything else? Just okay, let's just carry on. Then he brought me back to this fae energy. So he shares with me that he's very connected to the fae realm, very connected with the fairies, who are actually the earth guardians. The elemental energy comes in again. I know that the elementals are the guardians of Gaia. And because he carries this energy, he is quite connected to Gaia. And then he shows me that he is in contact with a lot of the fae, the fairies, elementals, gnomes, goblins, water sprites, pixies. It's almost like he's working with them, but it's also in his energy. He's able to communicate things to them, like they're transmitting or doing things with the earth, and then they bring information back to him. Again, he's not above the fae, he's working with them. But what he shared with me is they're able to go where I cannot. I can go there with my consciousness, but they can go there in their physical form. Yes, he said physical form. So fairies are real. Fairies are real, peeps. I mean, I've always known that, but just in case any of you are under any illusions that they're not, they are. So then I got an image of him walking around. And so all of these different little fae elementals, they are sitting on him and with him like all day. Now, I've seen in some sessions how there are cats and even dogs sometimes that can actually see the elementals, and they play with them, and every now and again one will ride on their back, and they'll get the zoomies and things like that. This was completely different. The image that he shared with me is I saw a whole lot of little elementals sitting on his head, hanging on his ears, hanging on his tail, sitting on his back, like holding onto his stomach like little monkeys or marsupials. And they're together all the time. They love being with him. So whether he's walking around, sleeping, just going on about his day, and they'll sleep on him, but they are with him like all the time. I mean, it was amazing just to see this cat with like 30, 40, 50 elementals, like all over his body at any given time. When I initially got this fae energy from him, it was like, wow, this is interesting. The fae are really the guardians of Gaia. I mean, the dragons and the unicorns also, I mean, all elementals are. But there's something about the Fae that they work very much with nature. To me, they're nature spirits and they're like nature guardians. They're all Gaia's guardians, but the Fae in particular, they have a particular deep connection to almost to nature. Again, what I was getting is that he was like a guardian and a bridge keeper and a bridge for energy and for frequencies and things like that. And what an awesome form for him to be in cat form, because cats are naturally bridges between realms and walkers between worlds. So this was really quite fascinating. The thing that I loved when we went deeper into this Fae energy was I was reminded again when I was looking up the count, it landed even more deeply for me, because with him working with the Fae and them working with Gaia and them being equals, that's why that count sort of correction was so important for him, because he's working with Gaia, he's working with the elementals, he's not giving them instructions and what have you, he's communicating with them, and it's a back and forth like all the time. So it really was quite beautiful, and it was just what he was doing with the Fae was even more solidified after I had gotten this whole like count story right in my head. Then he showed me that there are spaces that his energy goes into. So he was showing me that he can almost project his energy into these spaces, and then his energy almost activates a portal, if you will. So the Fae then enter through that portal. And what he was showing me is as they were going through the portal, because his energy is the thing that's activating the portal, and he's got this very wise, ancient energy, as they go through, it's almost like they're able to grab onto a little, almost like a thread. I was being shown them as like golden and silver threads, and they grab onto some of his energy and they take it through into the other realms, and then they weave. All the Fae are weaving together, but they're weaving this cat's energy into all the work that they're doing. It was absolutely magical. I mean, I wish I could actually recreate some of this and make movies, because I think they'd be awesome. What he shared with me is that they are helping Gaia. That is what they're doing. He's here to help Gaia, and that's why he's working so closely with the Fae, but he also carries this Fae energy, which makes the communication between the two of them very, very almost like seamless as they're weaving and doing the work that they're doing. And then he said to me, this is like preparation and groundwork. They are laying the foundations for what's to come. They're laying down this energy almost like a new blueprint. It's helping to shift and move, and it's helping Gaia to shed a lot of the density much faster, because as they lay things down, these threads are a higher frequency. And then they showed me, so the transmutation is one thing. So the threads might just go into this energy, and then automatically this denser energy is transmuted. But there's other times where this energy is actually disintegrated, and I saw it becoming like almost like dirt and dust, like something tangible. And then it would be broken down, and it would sink into Gaia. So I was almost showing like a decomposition of that original dense energy. It's like the energy becomes physical and then decomposes, and then Gaia uses it like fertilizer. The deeper part of this is that he shared with me is I was given this analogy that some of these threads are also being used to clean up Gaia's cells. So just like we're a body, and our body is full of cells and organs that are all conscious and talking to one another all the time, what this is doing is also like cleaning up Gaia's cells, her organs, if she has things like that, her chakras, her whatever it is. So helping her to clean up her system in this density that she is in, this being that we call Earth. The last thing this cat shared with me is, and I've got a note here that a lot of people don't think about their animals being light workers, but they are. And these two cats are not only light workers, but they are grid workers. And because cats have access to the other realms, and now one is working in spirit and one is here. So these two cats are continuously bridging these realms because they're working together. The one that's basically got boots on the ground is working with the boots on the ground that are very closely connected to Gaia. With both cats, there was also this very ancient energy that I was shown was almost older than time itself, like pre this kind of linear time thing that we've got going on here. And what they are doing is when they bring in these threads, what they're also doing is they're bringing this ancient remembrance and ancient knowledge, and they are rethreading it back into Gaia through and with the help of the Fae. The interesting thing towards the end of the session as well is that the animal sent a huge wave of love to his human guardian. And then he sent a second one. And it was so interesting because normally when they send love, I can almost feel my thymus opening. I almost feel like if I looked down that I would have a hole in my chest. It's a very strange sensation that I get. But this one, the second wave that he sent was lower down, and it was coming from my solar plexus. And I mentioned this to her. And I said, but the solar plexus is normally our place of power, sort of our will and things like that. And so I said to him, wow, this is a little bit of a different energy. And what he then shared with me was that he was sending through some of his power through to his human guardian as well, which is another first. So, this is a reminder that your animals are not just animals. They are doing so much, and they can be sending you so much energy, things that you need that you're completely unaware of, but they know exactly what they're doing. They are so tapped in, so tuned in. It really is nothing short of magical. These beautiful, beautiful creatures that we share our homes with and, have interactions with out in nature. So anyway, it was really validating as well, because the lady sent me a little email afterwards, and she said, you got his essence and presence so perfectly, and everything you said resonates deeply. You're able to express what I'm feeling in words. This one has blown my mind. Sometimes it's just listening. It's just listening to what they have to share. And I must just say that officially, I just have the best job ever. Really, the fact that I get to experience this kind of thing. So thank you all so much for listening. I hope this has helped to make your world a little bit more magical, and that you start thinking a little bit more deeply about what's really going on that we can't really see and that we're not aware of just yet, but I feel it's coming in. And thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. Wishing you a magical rest of your day wherever you are. And I am sure that I will be back with more magical stories.